Hey man, it's time for some more burning questions. Gonna get into the NFC East, and I feel like I'm excited to finally get into the East, but also gave me time to think about, man, we did this in the wrong order. Why did we
Yeah,
save our divisions till the end?
I know. Yeah, next time we may want to go the other way around. I don't know. It'd be
It's
easier anyway.
He's selfish,
It's a
and we'll
long
do
wait.
the NFC West first, and then maybe third, fourth, and fifth. We'll do the also them. But that being said, we're gonna get into the NFC East today. We're going to get into our two biggest questions for each team in the divisions. Michael's going to lead us with two for the Giants, but then after that, we'll get into the other teams. So, that being said, give me your starting question for those New York Giants.
The Giants. They've got a tough job and a tough division. So we'll start off with the obvious story, which is passing the torch from Russ to Dart. And some of that question is going to be how quickly are they going to try to force that? Are they going to let Russ really run the show for a while and not just teach the ropes, but really hold them for a while? So I think that's going to be the real intrigue for them during the season is, do we see Dart at all? Or do we keep Russ the whole time? There's a lot of positives, I still think. There's a lot of tools waiting to be used on the offense. Last year, we definitely talked about Tyrone Tracy Jr. He was really fun to watch in a couple of games. Neighbors, they've got a lot of cool things going with them. They picked up Scattaboo, who's fun to watch. I'll be intrigued to see how he gets used. And it's just so much opportunity, I think, for these offensive weapons to come around. I'm also intrigued to see what comes of Theo Johnson, their tight end, as he also gets more visibility, playing time, different looks in this offense. I think the offensive line has also made a couple of improvements as well. So it'll be interesting to see, is it just, can we get wins? Or is it, hey, Russ, pass the torch as soon as you kind of have got enough knowledge across to Dart? And also, how does he handle that? And how is he as a mentor, if you will? So I think that those are all many burning questions on the offense side of the ball, none bigger than passing the torch along. What do you think? Do you see that as the main story there in the Giants?
Yeah, I mean, that's number one. They've already named Russ the starter, which I think was actually the smart thing to do at this point. It shows a confidence in him. You know what you're going to get with Russ. I feel like he's not going to reinvent himself this year, I don't imagine. So yeah, you know what you're going to get. And then Jackson, they spent enough on him in draft capital that they need to make sure that he gets his chance at some point, I think. But at the same time, you didn't spend so much that if you have to move off of him next year or the year after or something like that, because it just doesn't look like it's there, or you get a better opportunity, then you're not in a position where you're gonna, we just threw away the first overall pick kind of thing. So yeah, that'll be the big thing. If I had to guess, I'd guess that Russ would start at least 6 games. 6 games was the first number that came to mind. And then if things aren't looking good, or if the season, if they're 1-5 and it's just not working, then we might see some Jackson Dart. But if the protection, if you were mentioned to the offensive line, if the protection's terrible and he's just getting crushed back there, they may not want to put Jackson in that position where he's just going to die, or at least not for very long. So there is a lot, and it's questions that I don't think we have an answer to here in July. So, but yeah, that'll be interesting to see it unfold. So, what else you got?
Yeah, and I think you were alluding for a second to, there's many other sub stories to this team. Like, there's a lot of intrigue of what's going on. I think the next one to me is really talking about the defense and trying to rebuild a bit more of a wall there. It's such an explosive division. With the Eagles and the Commanders, which we'll be talking about here momentarily, in Dallas, and what we expect to be their pass game. The Giants were about, I think, 24th, 20 something there in points against, which is, is not where you want to be, but considering all the woes they had last year, could have been worse. They've got some really great pieces on this, but I think as the offense is trying to figure things out, I think it's also an opportunity for the defense to continue building. I think it's Bowen's second year as DC. He continues to work that into, I think, more of a run-focused defense, which, given the fact that Barkley's in the division, probably makes a lot of sense. He's got, again, some really neat pieces. Dexter Lawrence, who doesn't wish to have him at tackle? He's a lot of fun to watch. Burns. I guess for me, I'm intrigued to see who steps up in the secondary and how much difference they make there. It's great to be able to stop the run, but if you're building long term against, let's say, the Eagles, who are an extraordinarily well balanced team, you can't just be good at one thing. You've got to be good at both sides. So I think this is an opportunity for them to continue rebuilding this defense into something that's scary, and they've got some of those linchpin pieces already in place. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I think so. They've got so many names on that D line. I have a coworker as a Giants fan, and we've talked about it ad nauseum. It's just like between Lawrence and then Thibodeau, Abdul Carter they just added this year, Brian Burns from before that. You've got yourself an absolutely elite list of names there. And I know Carter hadn't played a snap yet, but he looks incredible. He goes so under the radar with everything else that happened in free agency and the draft and the fact that the Giants aren't really picked to be Super Bowl favorites this year or anything. But, man, he looked so good. So we'll see there. I think their secondary just kind of needs to be average. If their secondary can just be average, then this will get a chance to really shine. But if they're porous, if they're just anybody can pass on them, then it's not going to matter. If they only have a second and a half, if they only needed half a second to figure it out. So can their secondary be average at least? It will give their defensive line a chance to really put in some work, and we'll get to see some Abdul Carter fun. Well, it won't be so fun for you, but it'll be entertaining for me. So,
it'll still be entertaining, just hopefully not on us.
Yeah, it's maybe not as much. So, but anyways, let's move on to let's move into Washington. Give me that first.
Okay.
When I'm looking at Washington, this is their bigger question, or at least the one I see really asked the most is, sophomore slump. And then I hear people bring up, I was like, I think the slump might be something of a myth or something that used to exist more, but that the NFL has corrected for fairly well in recent years. And I had to think back. I was like, man, you might be right, because I can't think of a guy who actually went through a real slump. I mean, you could say Mac Jones, but the whole team kind of went through a slump that second year, and then his career just fell off, and he figured out, oh yeah, there's really no magic here. It doesn't look like. So it's not Tom Brady 2.0. But anyway, so I'm not sure that there's really any evidence to suggest that he actually will go through a slump. We've talked during the offseason that I have my misgivings about the Commanders in year two. Not that they'll be bad, but that they won't just ascend to being, 17-0 and Super Bowl favorites.
Right.
And so that all being said, that's the big question is like, how is he going to look in year two when he's had time to adjust to the NFL and the NFL's had time to adjust to him? So I know you're a Cowboys fan, but I'm going to ask you anyway, like, how do you feel about that going into the season, just from what you've seen so far?
Well, man, I think that the thing that gets me with them is, he's a dangerous runner. He's very Lamar-esque. But I worry about him. Like, that's the number one thing that, as far as him and his productivity and will he fall off, is if they try to shift him from, hey, we want you to run 900 yards this season to, hey, let's try to run 400 yards and be more of a pocket passer. How does that impact? Is that really a slump, or is that really just changing what you're doing with him? I don't know. How does he handle that? I mean, he seems so advanced, so poised in his development of those things. But I think that's a transition because he is on the team that at RG3. Is it going to be something that they transition him to get away from that? As a Cowboys fan, he's scary, right? You can never sleep on this team. And even with us having a lot of our pieces back, he is the it factor on this team. I think that's where I am on it, is just, I think they're the real deal. I'm not overlooking him at all. I do not expect or anticipate or would plan on him having any kind of slump whatsoever, so much as a shift potentially, right? Where you may plan for him to be running on you all day, and then now he's going to pass on you all day. Who knows, right? They're a very versatile team. Yeah. But what else is going on over there with Washington?
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not really anticipating much of an actual slump in, do I think he's good? Do I think he took a step back? However, for production, one reason I could see it coming down potentially, or just evening out, is their second question, which is they were pretty darn healthy last year. And can they be healthy again? Like even with just moderate levels of health, will they have the same success? They were counting on some older players, such as pictured here, Zach Ertz, Bobby Wagner, Austin Eckler, Terry McLaurin, who they're dealing with their contract situation as we speak. He's 30 years old. He's not exactly a spring chicken, or coming up on 30. And so they're counting on some older players. Now, I do like that they added Laramie Tunsil, and I don't think he's had a particularly injury-riddled career, but I could be totally called on that if I'm wrong. So that's a smart move. But they're counting on some veterans, some very high-year veterans, and can they keep that production? Because can these guys stay healthy? I've worded that so terribly just now, but can these guys stay healthy? Because I think that's pivotal to their success. So am I making too big a deal out of that, or is this actually semi-reasonable?
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, we watched Zach Ertz as a Cardinal, and he had his ups and downs as far as being dinged up and all that on there. And I don't want to pick on Zach. I think your point's definitely there. I think one of the things that helped them stay healthy was the fact that Jaden was off running all over the field as well. I also like what they've done to diversify a little bit their offensive weapons by adding Deebo Samuel, who I think gives them, he's a Swiss Army knife. He can do all sorts of things for you. It's just how creative can you be to match his level of creativity. So I'll be very interested to see how he does in an attempt to take some of the pressure off these older veterans on the team. But I also think there will be an opportunity for some of the younger guys to step up if and or when there's a few of those missed games or small injuries, hopefully no injuries to anyone out there. So, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see for sure.
Yeah, it should be good. And to your point, Deebo Samuel's another older guy that they're coming in and asking to play a lot of snaps, and a guy who's touched the ball a lot. So, yeah, that's one of them that I'll be keeping an eye on. So we'll see. Now, the wait is over. We finally get into the Dallas Cowboys after 6 weeks of everything else, and it's been fun. This will be good. Yeah, I'm ready. Tell me about the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, I'll point out the obvious as a Cowboys fan. This is our entire team this year.
Yes.
The Dak Prescott. Now we wondered back when Jerry was saying last year around the draft, that we were going to be all in. Like, what does that mean? Now we know. We are now all in on Dak Prescott more than we've ever been. And so the question is going to be, how does he carry the team? Now, did we go get him some new weapons? Yes, we did. Are they exciting as a Cowboys fan? Absolutely. I am curious to see how in the world you add Pickens to CeeDee Lamb, and what does that equal, right? It's 2 + 2 = fish. Who knows? We have no idea what it equals. We know we expect great things. Jake Ferguson, how does this help him out? With that all being said, there are going to be some questions as well, and it's made paramount his health. And of course, this is an interesting time because there have been some reports of some injuries coming out of the training camp for the Cowboys on the offensive line, which is terrifying. Hopefully those guys are going to be right back. But I think this is all about Dak Prescott. And I think that's both a question of his health as well as his decision-making and putting himself at risk on the field, and also the ability of his teammates around him to perform at the level that they really should, because they're pretty high-end guys. So, I think it's this entire story of Dallas Cowboys this year is the Dak Prescott story. What do you think? Does that make sense? Is it too much weight on his shoulders?
It is, but every quarterback has it, and so it's a lot. And obviously, the defense needs to pick up their end of the couch, so to speak. But the first big question is, why did you do the Cowboys so dirty with this picture? That man needs facial hair more than any man in history.
I know.
So anyway, but yeah, no, it's all, I don't want to say it's all on him, but if he's great, they could be great this year. It's that simple. And we've seen him have the passing numbers to be great. I know he gets, he throws five touchdowns and 1 interception, and he's like, well, there's Dak throwing interceptions again. And I'm like,
Yep.
there were 5 other good things before that, right? I was like, okay,
Right.
but so I know he gets a little bit of that sometimes, and it's Dallas, so the microscope's on you. But yeah, it will come down to him, unfortunately. And I have a feeling I know some about what your second question might be pertaining to. So, but yeah, an inordinate amount of pressure will be on him this year. So what is that second question?
Well, the second part is why there will be such an inordinate pressure on any of these big teams. You've got a great running game to complement in our division, including the Giants, who are right now on the bottom of that tier. Like, this is currently, I think, our most productive running back. And that's also terrifying. This is what we don't want to see, is Dak Prescott running down the field. And for that to happen, we've got to get productivity out of Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders, and maybe even Jaden Blue. I don't know what to expect from him yet. I definitely expect him to be more change of pace depending upon how we use him at all. But yeah, I'll be interested. And those guys have had a couple of seasons here and there that are like, oh, okay, they had 900-yard season or a 1,200-yard season. They've scored a few touchdowns. All of those are great. And this is honestly for them, I think this is an enormous opportunity, because if they can pull off, what Pollard did a few years back, where it was like, can you really do this? And Dowdle, even from last year, if they can pull that off and be a productive guy, either they're writing their ticket here or they're writing their ticket somewhere else. So I'm excited for them. I hope that they perform well. But I think we'll be talking about this positively or negatively at the end of the year. This will be a very heavy part of the make or break of the Cowboys, I think, during the season. What do you think on this one?
I agree. And again, it goes back to that first question: is is it going to be third and 7 all the time because the run game's just not working?
Yeah.
If you can get into those 3rd and 2s, you give Dak some real choices here. But otherwise, it's just going to be slinging the ball 48 times plus a game, and that's just not sustainable. So you can have a game or two like that where a team's really committed to stopping the run against you, and you've had Dak. It's time to earn that paycheck, but you can't do that for 17 games. So yeah, that'll be huge. And if Javonte can stay healthy, that'd be a huge step in the right direction. Hopefully, the offensive line issues that you mentioned earlier are not serious, because it's really hard to have a good run game with a bunch of offensive linemen that don't even know each other's names. So that'll be pretty pivotal for them. I hope so. I was a Javonte fan coming out of college, and so I like the way he runs. And there were times at Denver when he was efficient, and I would not accuse Denver at any point in the last 5 years of having what I felt like was a run game centric approach. Like, it's always been a complement to a greater plan. And so maybe he's just been misused. We'll see. I have to hope that that's what's happened if I'm hoping Dallas gets something out of him. But he'll
get his shot this year to make a name for himself.
Yep.
All right. Well, why don't you wrap it up by telling us about my favorite, the Eagles?
Yes, your version of the Seattle Seahawks.
Exactly.
Getting into the Eagles, their questions are fun, but at the same time, you're just kind of hoping at some level. I mean, I don't really hate the Eagles, but even I'm looking at them like, okay, how can I paint the picture that they might not be completely dominant this year?
Yeah.
So, for example, the coaching changes. They a couple of years back, after the 2022 season, they had an incredible season. I think they went 14-3, went to the Super Bowl, lost in a close game to the Chiefs, lost both coordinators. Steichen goes out to the Colts. Gannon comes here to my Cardinals. Well, not here, but to them. And, and there's this turnover, and they come down a little bit the next year. They're 11-6. I know 11-6, that's really, oh my gosh, it's so terrible.
A rough year. Yeah.
I go for 11-6 season. But like, they did come down a step from 14-3. And then they reconfigured. They brought in the right guys, and they were right back in the Super Bowl, I guess, 24 months later, whatever it is. And so they can do that. Their culture is in place. And that, if I had to guess, I'd guess that that's the answer. The guy that they brought in, Vic Fangio's defense is elite. And yeah, he's got great tools to work with, but it's working quite well. And the guy pictured here, Kevin Patullo, if I'm saying that name even remotely correctly, he looks like a Nick Sirianni clone.
Yeah, you're right.
And so I'm just
Right.
like, he's clearly a culture guy. Came up for the last few years. He's been in that system with them. And it should just be more of the same. Yeah, they lost some personnel as well. That is meaningful. Milton Williams left. Josh Sweat, the Cardinal now. Yay. But they are just a factory right now for great players. And if that culture
It's true.
maintains because they've got good coaches, such as Patillo here, then they should be really good again. But can they sustain that going into this season? It's always a question whenever you change out part of your leadership. So when you've looked at them and their leadership, like, does it, I don't want to say worry you at all, but the opposite of worry? Are you encouraged by the loss of leadership that they might be worse? Or is this just a dread? It's going to be more of the same?
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of the people who, ultimately you want your team to become better so that they're winning because they're better team than your opposition, rather than the detriment or the deterioration of something on the other team. But I mean, yes, from just a sheer advantage point of view, do you think and potentially hope that maybe there's a shift there? Yeah, I mean, it would be nice if there's a little bit of a shift there, a crack in the armor, if you will. But I do agree with your concept of culture, and we talked about the Lions, I think last week, right? So, and they're similar. They've done such a great job, and very quickly on their part, of creating culture, and that culture kind of just builds in its own continuity. And I think that that's most likely what we're going to see here is that there's nuances for sure, new things, and maybe even new things to potentially exploit. But overall, I expect them to fit right into the mold and keep going forward. Somewhat sadly, but yeah, that would be my expectation. I don't think I expect them to make huge changes anywhere that is going to provide too much opportunity for the Cowboys or anyone else to exploit.
No, I'd say the Commanders put up a really good fight against them last year, but y'all with the Cowboys, with the various issues that they had, and maybe they're just built to beat you. I don't know. Handled you pretty soundly from what I remember, but we'll see. The next big question for the Eagles, I feel like, is addressing the potential for the Madden curse and Saquon Barkley. So it really will be, even if he comes way down this year and only has, let's say, 1,400 or 1,500 yards. It would still be one of the coolest seasons that happened. I know it wasn't as cool for you, but for me from the outside, I was like, I just can't help but like have to watch this.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And they should be fine. That's the thing. They'll still be dominant if he only has 1,400 yards. And that's losing almost 40% of his production from last year, 30-40%, whatever that is. I'm not a mathematician. And it would still be an incredibly good team with plenty of weapons everywhere you look. I mean, they may have a Hall of Famer in A.J. Brown. Devontae Smith has been a great two for them. They always have solid tight end, just all of this. And so it should still be good. So the question really isn't here necessarily, will this affect the team in a way that brings them down? Oh, they go from winning the Super Bowl last year to one and done in the playoffs or not even making the playoffs. It's just, we just saw Christian McCaffrey make the Madden cover, and then immediately, wow, his Achilles seemed to be, made out of silly putty. And so we're hoping he comes back, but what's going to happen with Saquon? So I guess that's my last question for them is are we going to get to see more of this, or was that pretty much it?
No, yeah, and I think you've already outlined the most probable scenario is that you would think that that our division in particular is adjusting to try to limit his explosive runs, right? And try to cut down on that. And that will, I would think, result in him having less overall yardage. Might end up with Jalen with more yardage, but that makes sense and it works for the Eagles. I think that the biggest concern I would have if I were an Eagles fan, which I'm certainly not, is the health of Saquon Barkley. Now I feel like our team's not just trying to protect Jalen from getting injured like most teams. I'm almost more concerned about Saquon, because I do think there were a lot of games last year that if you took Saquon out in the first quarter, they don't come close to winning those games. He is their momentum. He is what they build off of. He completely throws off the opposing team. So, if he were to have, a similar, hopefully short term, hopefully no injury. But if he were to have an injury, I think that completely changes not just the landscape of the offense of this team, but of the entire division as a whole. So yeah, he is remarkable. Like that term "must watch football" gets thrown around pretty loosely. Saquon Barkley, I don't care if you take him off this team, put him on any other team in the NFL, wherever he is must watch football. And I think as a fan, you have to kind of respect and probably enjoy him overall. So yeah, I agree with you on this one.
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, a bright side. That's a Jaguars player he's jumping over, not a Cowboys player. So you don't have to look at that. I had to look for 5 years straight at Jerome Simpson jumping over Darrell Washington. I think it was back when that happened.
Yeah.
He did a full flip into the end zone. So you won't have to relive this directly as a Cowboys fan, just secondary. So, all right, very good. Well, sir, that should wrap up our NFC East.
Sweet.
Next week, we'll get into the South, and then we'll wrap the following week on the West. We are trying to get to 100 subscribers by the start of the 2025 NFL season. We've got about a month or so left, and we're trying to just get up to that number just as a goal to make. We appreciate anyone who's willing to click on little things, leave us a comment, and tell us how crazy this is. Tell us about how the tush-push ban or no ban is actually the bigger question for the Eagles, and whatever it may be. We really appreciate everyone who's already subscribed. A big thank you to everyone. This has been really fun. But yeah, we will see you all next week. Have a fantastic day.